So after two albums fairly similar to each other in 2017 and 2019 titled Fill Your Feelings Full and How Do You Love, the Regrets decided for the third time around on this new album Further Joy that they were going to take a more pop-leaning direction, that of just regular pop, synth pop, alt pop, whatever, still mixed in with their older sound, just it's less there as it's, like I said, just it's melting into this new genre from them that we haven't heard before. And I gotta say, I was a bit skeptical at first, hearing some of the singles especially. I didn't really know how I would overall feel about this thing, considering I am such a big fan of their first two records, that when it came to album number 3, I said this might be when they start to change a bit, because if it's not after the first album, then the switch in genres comes after album number 2. The band gets bored of doing the same thing over and over. Then they decide to flip the switch and do some other things that they maybe enjoy, or, show off some other inspirations that they maybe have. And with this album, there was really only 2 songs that I would say I disliked overall, and that's What Makes Me Love You and Subtleties, Never Giving Up on You. I don't know, just of the 13 tracks on this thing, these felt the weakest overall, and I feel like don't have a lot of mainstay when it comes to my Regrets playlist. Then in the OK track we have Monday, which was the first single that was released for this album, and I remember liking this a lot more when it was out, but since I've heard more of this album and a couple other singles, I've actually really changed my mind and just kind of think, it's there. I don't think it's great, but I don't think it's bad either. We have Homesick, which I think is a nice one. It's, Lydia Knight, the lead singer of the band, talking about how, when she does this or goes on tour, she gets very homesick. It's nice. And then, of course, there's You're So Fucking Pretty, which, again, isn't one of my favorites. This was one of the singles that had me doubting the album in the first place, but I don't think it's terrible compared to the other songs on this list. And then we go into my favorites. Anxieties, Out of Time. This is actually my favorite of the singles, the most recent one, I think. It kicks the album off, and I think it does a good job with that. It really, really shows you what the album is going to be now down the line. Barely on My Mind was nice and fun, la-di-da, even though it has, like I said, the la-di-das and the doot-doots and all that kind of stuff that people would talk about. It's catchy, it's nice, I love it. I don't know why, but it felt like old Regrets to me, like I could definitely feel them in there coming out one way or another. Better Now, Rosy. Step 9, I think, was my absolute favorite from this track. I don't know why, but like I said, when you talk about a song that resembles the old sound of the Regrets, this is probably the closest you're going to get here. Nowhere and then Show Me You Want Me were also nice. It just, they flowed well together, and for the most part, this is a change that I think I can get with the Regrets. They're still doing enjoyable things. Sure, it feels weird hearing Lydia Knight have reverb on her voice, or that weird high-pitched echo sometimes, but she's using more of her vocal talents in this case. I feel like, even though she has vocal talent and used it in the first 2 records, she went more out of her comfort zone with this one and showed us she can do more, and even sometimes kind of pushing toward that Dua Lipa influence. You can definitely see that in there. As Rosy, I can definitely see as a song that Dua Lipa would write herself and create. It was weird to hear, and it took some getting used to, but, once you get around track 5 or 6 on the album, you definitely start feeling it a little bit more, and it takes a minute. That's really all I gotta say. Like, you can't just listen to the first 2 tracks on the album and just be like, oh, I don't like this, I don't know. You really have to listen through and just hear all the songs before you can really, really make that judgment, because, again, I really think this direction for them was nice. It still felt like it fit the band in a way, and it wasn't completely out of left field. Like, I knew one way or another, with the way this band was, that they would try to make this pop record at some point in time, and that's what they did here. I mean, they were already kind of making pop songs in a way, but they had more of like a garage rock and even sometimes punk feel and all that kind of stuff, but it felt like that really wasn't the music that they wanted to make anymore. Like I said, considering some of the songs on their second record kind of having a little bit of a tinge to what this was, but not too much. They weren't trying to transition fast. They were trying to transition slow, throwing some things like this on their last record. And then this one was the record where they were just going to go full out and really hit you with that change. And you know what? They did a good job with this. I think that giving this record a 7 out of 10 is nice. It's not as great as their first two, but it's still very enjoyable and one that I would recommend to many. And like I said, for some, it's going to take a minute to really start to kick in for you, especially if you're a fan of the first two records. You're definitely going to need that time to sit and listen, but once you do get into it, man, you go on an adventure, and it is a nice adventure. So that's it for me. You can tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this album? And until then, stay safe out there, wear your mask, get vaccinated, and I will catch you all in the next one.